Welcome to the tutorial for 6.1, Jabba's Palace. This is the first level in episode 6 and marks the beginning of the second half of the run. We've marked this level with a difficulty rating of 8 and an RNG rating of 2. However, if you opt to go for the advanced strat Spiderful in this level, the RNG rating is instead 5. Goal times are crucial for this level since there is very little RNG, and with how challenging this level is, practice is vital. This level features a reset. Since all resets following the first one will be performed exactly the same way, wait until the timer reaches 4 seconds after pressing Finish Story, and Alt-Tab, press Enter, then up on the command line, and select your first file to load into the Cantina. This should be identical to how you reset the game earlier before 4.1 Secret Plans. Right when you're actionable, jump and hold left to land on the shop. Scroll left and buy Tractor Beam, and then continue scrolling left to buy Fast Force. Head over to the episode 6 door and call in P2 before you enter. Do a slash with both players entering the episode 6 room, and then head into Jabba's and begin the level. There are 2 different strats for this front gate, so we will start with the beginner strat. At the beginning here, you're going to head over to the door and trigger the right turret by walking up to it with Chewie, while you bring Leia to the center to build the platform. Don't stand too far away with Chewie, otherwise the turret will target Leia instead and interrupt her build. While Leia is building, shoot the right turret with Chewie. These take 4 shots to blow up, but they can be finicky and don't like to die, so just keep spamming shots until they are destroyed. Once the middle platform is complete, jump up with Leia and activate the middle and left turrets. Once the turrets are destroyed and the door is open, head forward with both players and try to be up against the door with the players as it is opening. The expert strat for this gate is known as Sentry Jump. This involves skipping the platform build entirely by executing a precise jump on the leftmost turret. When the level begins, hold forward with both players and perform a double swap. Chewie is going to go activate the right turret while Leia activates the left turret. When you reach here, jump with both players to activate the turret hatches. As they open, move to around this spot with Chewie so that you can shoot the turret. At the same time, line up Leia for the jump. Try to position the center of her head with this bolt on the wall here. This trick has some leniency in terms of position, so try to keep her within this range. In order to time the jump, look at the rightmost panel that is moving to reveal the turret. Notice that this panel moves in and then briefly moves back out. As the panel moves back out, this black line appears. When you see the line, jump up without holding any directional inputs. If done correctly, Leia will then land on this pixel, and as you notice this, jump again while holding straight right to open the top hatch. After you get this jump, begin shooting the right turret with Chewie as Leia comes back down to the ground to shoot the left one. Each of these turrets takes 4 shots to explode. So after the right one is destroyed, move to this position with Chewie, face directly up, and fire 4 shots to break the final turret. There are a variety of reasons that this trick can fail. The most common case is getting your jump eaten like this. If this happens, that means your initial jump was too early. Another case is not ever landing on the pixel, which means your initial jump was too late, or you were too far right. If you aren't able to open the top hatch on your second jump, you are positioned too far left. For the next section, send your controller player forward while the keyboard player stays back and builds a speaker. There's some weird collision here, so make sure you jump with the controller player to avoid that. When the speaker is finished being built, it will temporarily stun the Gamorreans, which is important for keeping your helmet. Once the keyboard player finishes building, turn on EBB, Fast Force, and Tractor Beam while dropping them out. Next, grab the helmet and use the first Bounty Hunter panel. Continue into the next room, and once you get close to Luke, begin trying to call in. Once Luke calls in, you can then go build the next bounty hunter panel, while Luke stays behind to force choke the Gamorreans, keeping you safe from losing your helmet. Once the panel is done, use it and then head into the next room. It is slightly faster and riskier to build the panel with Luke after he calls in instead. You have to be careful about keeping your helmet here, so it's recommended you only do this if you're confident in your 1P2C. A Gamorrean will either drop in from the left or the right hatch. If from the right, walk up and punch it twice, and if from the left, the Gamorrean will show up later, so you can force choke it with Luke while the other player uses the panel. If you lose your helmet in this room, you do have to go back to the helmet dispenser you got the original one from. To make the enemies less annoying, you can bring Luke along to help kill them. And if you're really struggling here, you can pull the levers to stop the Gamorreans from spawning in. Once again, there are two different ways to play this next room, so let's start with the beginner strat. At the beginning of this room, walk a bit forward and then perform a jump shot towards the box on the right. You'll have to wait for the pieces to become buildable, so use this downtime to swap Leia to Chewie and send Luke forward. Build the platform with Luke as soon as the pieces are buildable, and take 3 shots with Chewie down left to kill incoming Gamorreans. Start forcing the platform and stay on the left side of it with Chewie. Once you get to the top, fall down on top of the right lever, and then first pull the right lever and then the left one. While this is happening, you can force any Gamorrean that is approaching with Luke. Right after the second lever is pulled, a camera pan will begin. You can actually skip this by dropping out Luke. A good visual cue here is to drop out when the camera starts shifting upright. Then call him back in and make your way towards the gate, and shoot the obstacle with Chewie. Here it's recommended to do a double swap with your players to set up Chewie on keyboard for Spiderless. Take a tight turn around this corner and shoot the 2 chains holding this door. Make sure not to shoot them too close together or the door can softlock. Proceed through the door hugging the right wall with both players. You do not need to kill the Gamorreans as you enter the end of this hallway. You can just avoid those. Next is a trick called Droid Avoid. This is a clip using this forcible piece of droid on the ground. The tricky part about this skip is that if you force the piece too far, it will explode and you can no longer perform the trick. It might be worth it to just practice forcing this piece by itself so you can get used to the point at which it will break. You'll be clipping Chewie out, so position Luke right about here, and Chewie along this wall right at the black dot. To clip, do that slight force of the piece without breaking it, and if it doesn't clip him out immediately, you can just release and force again in quick succession, making small position adjustments with Chewie as you go. Once you see Chewie clip out, fall a bit and then cut in left so you can walk on the collision out of bounds. Drop out P1 and then take a good line with Chewie to the door. When you see Chewie fall very slightly at the door, spam jumps and then move down once he's all the way up to hit the transition and enter the next room. The advanced strat for this room involves a trick called Spiderful that utilizes one of the spiders to get out of bounds and skip these 2 gates entirely. There are 7 different possible spider spawns in this room, and 6 of them are fast. If you get the spawn where the spider is moving directly right to behind this box, it is faster to instead do the beginner strat in this room. The other 6 possible spawns in order of speed, starting with the slowest, are top left, top right, far left, bottom right, and in the middle moving straight down. The spawns are determined entirely by RNG, which is why the RNG rating for this level rises to 5 if you're going for this trick. As you enter the room, ensure your player 1 is Chewie. If you entered this room with Leia on player 1, swap to Chewie. Look for the spider, and if you get the slow spawn, run over to the box and go for the beginner strat. Otherwise, run over to the spider with both players. Spam tag to get on the spider with Chewie. Begin to run down towards the initial transition as you follow behind with Luke, damage boosting with a slash on the way. In order to perform Spiderful, place the spider here so that the front 2 legs are in front of this line on the ground. To align precisely, it may help to stop moving with the spider here and use Luke to push him into position. While this is not an extremely precise position, going too far down will reload the previous room. Once you are positioned correctly, you will need to perform a specific set of inputs. First, press jump or tag with Chewie to get off the spider. Next, immediately press tag with Luke to get on the spider and pause with him instantly. The input should look a lot like this in very quick succession. Drop Luke out and aim Chewie in this direction, taking care to not hit the transition. Spam tag with Chewie to swap to Luke on the spider and instantly dismount. As you jump off the spider, hold down until you are behind the floor, and then hold up to get out of bounds. This out of bounds movement can be tricky, so it's important to follow these lines closely. If you're too high here, you will pop into this tunnel. You can lose height by dropping down over here. As you approach this gate, if the camera is not following you, jump up until it does. Once you reach this point, hold an upright angle, favoring up over right. You will need to get an edge jump out of bounds, so try to jump when you reach here, spacing a double jump to cut this corner. After you double jump, cut into the left a bit to ensure you don't fall and die. As soon as you hear Luke land out of bounds, press jump. Jump again until you're high enough for your camera to follow you. When you reach here, fall to cut this corner. Once you are past this gate, spam jump to pop in bounds, heading over to Droid Avoid. Note that if you do pop in bounds early here, the backup is to double jump slam both of these pillars to open the gate. Next is Droid Avoid once again, however because of Spiderful, we only have a single player, so this trick will be executed a bit differently. Position Luke against the wall and around this spot. Face left or downwards before tapping force to push yourself out of bounds. If you get pushed upwards, set up the trick again. And if you get pushed downwards, press force again repeatedly until you are too low for the trick to work or you get clipped out. Once you've clipped out of bounds, take this line to move over to the stairs. Since Luke can double jump out of bounds, we can actually cut off this corner here by taking this line with a space double jump. Again, ensure you get an edge jump starting your first jump here. Once you reach the door, spam jump and hold down to enter the next room. Once you enter this room, if you did the beginner strat in the previous room, call Luke back in and head towards the platform on the right side. If you did the advanced strat, call Chewie in instead. Do a couple jump shots with Chewie on the way to shoot the cones before your players get there. Then jump onto the box with Luke and then jump up top while Chewie will push the same box over to the platform. Have Luke start building the bridge while Chewie does a jump to stand on this piece of collision of the box and then do another jump to get on top of the box. Jump up again with Chewie to get to the very top, and now it is time for Spiderless. This trick works by lining Chewie up using a visual cue and then jumping up with Chewie and midair having Luke force the bridge slightly so that Chewie can land on the ground. Once Chewie lands, you let go of the force with Luke, and the bridge should come back into place while also clipping Chewie out. There are two popular visual cues that people will use to line up Chewie. One with his gun out and one with his gun away. We'll show you both of those so you can see which one you prefer most. So starting with the gun out setup. With this one, you're going to be looking at Chewie's right shoulder. You want him directly on the left of this vent here, and you want him in a position so that when you look closely at the right shoulder, there is the smallest bit of space between Chewie, the wall, and the vent. This is pretty precise, so if you think you had him in the right spot and it didn't work, you were just slightly off. It can be hard to get him into the correct spot consistently, so don't get discouraged if it takes a while. Now for the gun away setup, you're going to be looking at Chewie's left foot and how it aligns with the dark gray stud on the platform you're going to be forcing. Position him to the right of the stud and then tap upwards once. Now look at how his foot is interacting with the stud. If you see a section of the light brown part of his leg, you're likely too far right. If the anti-stud in Chewie's back leg is starting to touch the dark gray stud, then you're likely too far left. The left side of his leg being lined up perfectly with the right side of the stud is ideal. It'll look something like this here. If your spiderless attempt didn't work and you got pushed out to the left, you were too far left. And same thing with the other way. If you got pushed too far right, you were too far right. And if you get pushed up, you were 1 pixel off. This is good to know for practice so that you can get the visual cues down. Once Chewie is clipped out, you'll have 2 options here with Luke. The beginner option is to simply drop Luke out, and the advanced option is to perform an auto dropout later in the room. Wait for Chewie to fall a little bit, and then start moving left with him. If you cut in too early with Chewie, you'll be stuck in this box and be forced to perform Spiderless again. You're going to bring him right under where the 3PO panel is, and right when you cross this section, jump up twice with Chewie. This line you take here is very important. You want to stay directly under the hallway that is above you. If you go too far right, you may fall and die and have to set up Spiderless again. If this does happen though, there's a good chance Chewie will spawn in the exact position to clip him out again, so you can just try Spiderless again with those character positions. Just jump up, force it, and release the force. Now, the advanced method involves performing an auto dropout. Note that if you have Chewie on keyboard, this can only be done if you have 2 controllers. As you get clipped out, move Chewie out of the wall and cut in once you're under the box. Move Luke over to this object while Chewie moves over to the hallway out of bounds. Jump on top of the object with Luke and continue under the hallway with Chewie, jumping up twice. Hold up left with Chewie until you are here at this line and then hold straight up. Continue to hold up and tap a bit left. When you reach this point, Luke will then get auto dropped out. And if you have Chewie on player 2, press a button on your other controller to allow Luke to be called back in on your original controller when you enter the Rancor fight. Once you get past the hallway, continue past the helmet room and into the last section, we're going to jump up into the grate to trigger the Rancor fight. This is called Rancor Warp, since there is an out-of-bounds door here that skips a 40-second cutscene. This can sometimes be tricky to hit because of the camera, and it may be easier for you to go past the grate and then come back in just to adjust the camera. If you do accidentally miss the Rancor Warp, don't panic. There is a backup that only loses about 15 seconds. Make sure you practice this along with the Rancor Warp. Once you've popped back up, head backwards towards the camera and load the helmet room. Your party should all spawn here with you, so swap to Luke. Head to the bottom right section of the room and stand on this torch. Do a double jump straight right, and once you see yourself past the wall, hold neutral so that you don't hit the transition back to the other room. Let yourself fall a bit until you're under the floor, and then try Rancor Warp again. Entering this room, call Luke back in and swap Chewie to 3PO. Move 3PO towards the left panel and force push him twice with Luke. Use the panel and then move a bit left to avoid a deactivation from Luke as he picks up the Gamorrean. With Luke, you'll want to stand against this rock here and wait for the Gamorrean to touch the ground before forcing him, otherwise the Rancor will not aggro on the Gamorrean. Use the force to move him into this position here, as this will help the Rancor take a good line to the bomb. Make sure you don't hold force for too long or else the Gamorrean will die, and you can move him back and forth or just spam the force button to prevent the death while still holding him in place. Once the Gamorrean is picked up, go use the panel again with 3PO and then slash the bomb with Luke. Make your way over to R2 with 3PO and swap, and while doing this, force the new Gamorrean that just spawned in with Luke and keep him near the Rancor. After the Gamorrean gets grabbed, go slash the bomb on the right side and build the grapple to avoid accidentally building it later when you're trying to force. As soon as you slash the bomb, use the R2 panel, and then once the third Gamorrean drops, force him over to the left with Luke. Make sure to position the Gamorrean on the right side of the gate to avoid the Rancor getting stuck on the rock in the middle of the room. In the event that the Rancor does get stuck on this rock, the best way to back it up is to run up to the top of the room while panning the camera up to get the Rancor off screen. Now, while holding the final Gamorrean, move down with R2 and swap to a blaster character. And once the Rancor grabs a Gamorrean, move to the levers. Pull them once the Rancor is about here. If you pull the levers too early, the gate will miss the Rancor and you'll have to grab a new Gamorrean. And then as you pull the levers, just drop P2 out. There are some advanced nuances in this room that can speed up the Rancor fight by a couple of seconds. The first tip is to release the first Gamorrean when he is here, and instantly jump slash the bomb. While doing this, use the 3PO panel and begin choking the Gamorrean to put him here. This will allow the Rancor to skip his turnaround animation entirely. The next tip is to take the last Gamorrean and hold him all the way up here, forcing the Rancor to run over the rock. While he can get stuck doing this, you can also pan the camera up while holding the Gamorrean here to keep him off screen, which will help the Rancor path to him, taking a better line to the gate to end the level. And that concludes the Jabba's Palace tutorial.